How are we doing, guys? And welcome back to Best Soccer Coaching's Coach's Corner. Today we've got a special guest in Sandy Stewart, former Kilmarnock, Adrian's, Partick Thistle and Ayr United player, former Ayr United manager, and he was assistant at a number of teams as St Johnstone, Burnley, Bolton, Houston Dynamo, and he's now the current Jamshedspor assistant coach. How are you doing today, Sandy? You good?
I'm good, Lewis. Are you?
I'm not bad. Getting along with it, I guess.
Well, I'm still in isolation, actually, so I've got one day to go. This is my final day of isolation.
We're breaking free tomorrow.
Definitely. I mean, that's 10 days now, so it's been a long 10 days, especially when you've been in a bubble for 5 months.
I was going to say, I can imagine it'll be tough. But we'll talk about that type of stuff as well with the coaching and that as well. Just a wee break for the video, guys, to mention our sponsor today. Our sponsors, K-Mac Plasterers, best plasters in Glasgow. Definitely go get them checked out. The link's going to be in the description. Make sure you check them out, guys. Just to start off with the day, we're just going to talk about your coaching background. That obviously you were a player before, and about how you got into coaching and the way that led through for you to be a coach.
Well, obviously, my first experience of coaching was under Alec MacDonald when he was the manager of Airdrie. And myself, Kenny Black and Gary Mackay all became first-team coaches at the time. And I think at that time, when you hit the 30-odd barrier, if you're looking to stay in the game, it's obviously coaching. I'd done my coaching badges. I took my B badge at 28 and I was on my A licence. So I was right into coaching. I knew that's exactly what I wanted to do after I finished playing. So Alec MacDonald gave me that opportunity, although it was very slight at that time. There wasn't much coaching involved because I was still playing. Under Ian McCall was the next one. It came to Airdrie, and I had he made me a coach as well, myself and Owen Coyle. So even then, you were limited in what actual coaching you were doing. It was more about passing on good traits and good habits to the younger ones that was coming in the team. It was more about that and keeping it bouncing in the dressing room. And then when Ian left, I was still playing, and Jim Ballantyne took over at Airdrie. That's when Airdrie United get formed. They bought over Clydebank. So I went into a meeting with Jim thinking I was going to get offered a coaching role, when he actually offered me the manager's job. So I went away for a night, thought about it, and gladly accepted. And at that time, Brian Rice was my assistant manager. So that was, what I will say, for your first coaching job, it was extremely hard because I was player coach. So I was playing. So before the games, team talk, pick a team talk, played the game, half time, team talk, end of the game, team talk, out and see the press. So by the time a Saturday night came, I put a light off. I was well tired.
An early bed after all that, I can imagine.
Oh, jeez. Well, the only good thing is, when you see it now, yes, you were flung into the deep end. But I had 4.5 fantastic years, and I loved every minute of it. It's only when you walk away and you realise how much you actually done. It was incredible.
It must be brilliant, obviously, looking at your career and coaching that as well. It must be brilliant to take that time sometimes to reflect and look at how well you have done. Considering it was never a certain plan. It was obviously it's something developed from playing.
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree with that. It was, as I said, it was one aim I get flung in the deep end. And even though I'd always wanted to get into coaching, I thought it would have been like an assistant coach first and then maybe get into management, that the path most people take. But it wasn't to be. And as I said, I had 4.5, I mean, I would have said very successful years. We won the league title in our second year. And when you're talking about coaching, I remember the very first coaching session I had 70 players there, 70. It was like trials, because you've got to remember this was a new team. Yes, it was a bit of Clydebank Football Club, and it was a bit of, they had Airdrie players as well. So there were two of them amalgamating, and obviously other players coming, free transfers or whatever it may be at that time. My first training session that night was 70 players, and once a week had been by, I'd cut it down, but I can assure you it's not easy.
I was going to say, I don't think MD's equipped to handle 70 players, especially the new ones coming in. Everybody try to press as well.
Yeah.
Just obviously, like we're going to go on to like talk about how you've developed your coaching and stuff like that as well. So obviously, you're talking about the likes of Ian McCall. Has there been any like people you've worked with that you've took the best experience from, like you learned the most from for like coaching and managing?
Yeah, I think you can take some from all your managers. I mean, when I look at it as a playing career, I had 17 years at Airdrie, so I didn't move about that much. Started at Hearts with Alan McDonald. I then went on to Kilmarnock under Jim Fleeting. Even though it was brief, it was like 7 weeks. It was great. I really enjoyed myself. It was fantastic being around the first team when I had been a reserve player at Hearts. Then I went to Airdrie and Jimmy Bone was there, and Jimmy, I knew Jimmy before. Great, loved working under Jimmy. Wasn't always a first team regular, but I still like working under him. He made, when I look at his training now, and I actually say to him, because he was one of my coaches when I went down to Largs, he was taking it. And he said that at that time, he didn't have to do much coaching at Airdrie because he brought experienced players in who knew the game and who knew how to play in that division. And I mean, we get promoted into the Premier League, so he must have known what he was doing. Then Alan McDonald came back to Airdrie came to Airdrie, and I thought to myself, well, I need to find a new club because I'd been freed from Hearts, but no. So Alec had 8 unbelievable years under Alec McDonald. He's one of the ones I still call Gaffer whenever I see him, whenever I phone him, whenever I'm talking to him, I meet him. I've got tremendous respect for them all, but obviously with a career spanning 8 years at Airdrie, and the success that we had at Airdrie as a provincial club was unbelievable. So I took a lot of things from him, and obviously Ian McCall when when he came into Airdrie, because the year we had at Airdrie under Ian was unbelievable as well, when we were just picked by Partick Thistle for the Premier League, where all the cost cutting and everything else that was done there was just an incredible feat as well. So no, you definitely pick up, and that's what I would say to any other young coaches that we'll probably go on about later on. Write down the stuff that you pick up, the good stuff. There are obviously stuff that you might not like and you might not take on board, but there'll be lots of good stuff that you've got through the years with the experienced coaches. Write them down, keep them in a manual, and go and look at them after it.
Because that's something like I take wee notes here and there. Anybody that I've coached with, no matter if it's like a children's session, like a one-to-one session, I've seen other people do it. People I haven't even coached with, I've just watched them coach. I've always tried to take that little bit down, and I think it was in Fergie's book I was reading that he just the year before he left Man United for the last time, he was talking about how he was constantly learning from other coaches. How at that point that he was learning like the most from like Wenger and stuff like that, even though they weren't as successful as Man United, he was still learning at that point, even at the end of his career. Going on to that, we're going to be talking about coaching philosophy. So the way that you developed how you want to be as a coach and a manager, and how you want the game to be played. How did you develop that?
Well, I think, as I said, when I first became player manager, the big difference from then what am I now, when you still coached as a player. And that's when I think about it now, when you gave me that question, and I was thinking that in my head, am I the same coach now as I was then? No, definitely not. Because then it was all exuberance. Everything was new to you. You thought you could change a game by shouting on the touchline, which you obviously can't. Although sometimes I still do that. I just got a yellow card.
That's natural, isn't
it? When I was in India, but that's where the passion comes in about wanting to win games. But when I was younger, I was definitely much more involved in a game. As I said, I probably played the game through the players, which sometimes maybe didn't help, because you were shouting on too many instructions when you should just let the players play. And I think when I see that now for other coaches, I think to myself, well, maybe in 5 years' time, they'll think back and think, I should just have let the players play there and have your instructions before you go on at half time and at the end of the game. But sometimes you just get caught up in it. It's a will to win. It's a passion that you have within yourself. And I mean, certain people do crazy things on touchlines. I mean, even the most experienced managers, I talk about Alex Ferguson, Guardiola, Arsene Wenger, the people who've been in it for years and lots of success. I mean, sometimes they can lose a plot at the side of the pitch. And I'm sure when they go back at the end of the game and they think to, or 2 days later, and they think to themselves, why did I get so emotional? Why did I get so upset about it? Because that's the type of people they are. Football's an emotional game.
It's that passion you talk about as well. Obviously, like both of us have like grown up always playing football, and I felt that with like my first like managing job with the women's team. That I felt that like 2 or 3 games into it, I would be coaching for the sideline and trying to play from the sideline. Like even like players that similar in the position that I played, I'd be like, right, do this, do this, do this. When really we've worked on it all week, they are capable of doing it. You should just let them play and then have the wee bits and bobs at half time. That's something that I've certainly learned. And I think you still get some young coaches that feel like they need to be heard at the side to be noticed, if that makes sense. It's obviously something that's good to learn from as well.
See, I think it's different when you're saying they need to be noticed, or people are just that passionate that they're very, very vocal and they think they're actually helping the team. It means I said when I was at Airdrie with John McVeigh and Al McDonald, who were both very passionate on the touchline. But sometimes you spend as much time turning around and getting instructions in what you did in your actual game. So that can be off-putting, but look, it's everybody's to their own there. It's just how comfortable everybody else you feel yourself. If you're comfortable doing it and you think it's helping, you do it. If you're maybe not feel comfortable and you're a little bit, you can come back for your emotions there. That's right as well.
Aye. It's just obviously the players will understand that it's only for their benefit that we're trying to do it as well. It's not as if it's just doing it for the sake of it. It's obviously trying to help win the game.
And I think, sorry Lewis, but I think that's important to get that message across to the players. In case some players get a little bit aggravated with it or anything else, that it's only, you're only trying to do it for their benefit. And yes, there might be circumstances you've told players throughout the week, this is what you've got to do. You've got to look over your shoulder. You've got to see the winger coming in. As I played the fullback, stuff like that. But if they don't do it, if you feel you can get a response out of them for the touchline and it saves a goal, you're going to do it.
Aye, that's the thing. Like different people respond to different things. But I've coached players that need that like helping hand, the wee arm around the shoulder, just to help them. But there's some players that do react better to being told what to do, and like you need to do this, you need to up your act, and they'll respond brilliant to that. And it's all about, I feel like it's all about just trying to learn. You need to know your team. You need to know who responds to what. And as you're saying, like we are just doing it like for the best of their ability. And I think once you learn that about your team, you know your team that well, then it'll go a lot further and they'll understand that.
I remember when I first went to Burnley and we played Arsenal in the FA Cup, and it was Pat Rice and Arsene Wenger that was there at the time. And I was speaking to Pat Rice because obviously I was a defender, so I want to know about defending. And I said to him, I says, how do you coach from Monday to Friday, the back four? He says, Sandy, I don't coach them. He says, Colo Touré does that. Now, he played. He says he knows exactly when to step up. He knows when to come out, when to go back. He says he tells them on the pitch, he says, because he can get to them before I can get to them. And I think the higher up you go, probably the less coaching you need to do. Because I mean, if you're paying £30 million for a player, you don't think you have to tell them where to stand on a football field or when to come up or whatever like that. Yes, they've got to recognise who they're playing with and their teammates that they're playing with and who likes what, whether they want to high press or whether they want to low press. Yes, you've got to understand that because all teams are different in that category. But I think as far as football knowledge and everything else with certain players, they shouldn't need to be told.
Yeah. And again, we were talking about experience, that comes with experience as well. And also as a very good point that when you get to that higher level, they will have had that experience of being in these positions and being coached that and had it for so long, and it helps like naturally they take that onto the pitch, and that's something that I think you see quite a lot from the managers that are coming through, the players that have came through to be managers, and you've noticed how well they've done it. They've been the players that have been the coaches on the pitch their full career, and it's naturally a good progression.
Yeah, I definitely think you're right there. There's no doubt about that. They've probably been the leaders on the pitch. But it's like when you're talking about the players, it's coming into a new environment and it's learning how teams play. And that's what I talked about before, maybe talk about shapes and stuff like that, and where people press on the pitch. It's all about that. It's all about getting that information forward, working with that from Monday to Friday. Because they're obviously, the higher up you go, they're all good football players. There's no doubt about that. And that's when your coaching comes in. It's like, do you coach the same way when you started as when you do when you finished? If you move up the ladder, no, you probably don't, because you don't have to. You just it's different. It's different things. It's not, you don't coach any less. You're just talking different theories.
It's adapting in it.
Yeah.
So next we're going to talk about coaching barriers. So obviously, just now in what's going on in the world, there's been barriers for, I know certainly here's been barriers for coaching, for youth all the way up to the top. Apart from just now, have you felt that you've had any coaching barriers like in your career? Maybe it's like developing how you want to play, your style, or whatever it may be.
Not really. I think it depends what club you go into and how they've been used to playing and the type of personnel you've got. I mean, it's I listen to people talking about formations and everything else. Now, if you can go into a team and you can spend money and you can bring in the players that you know exactly can play the formation that you like, then that's great, fantastic. You can keep that. But sometimes you've got to change your formations to suit the players that you've got. So it's not always a case of, look, I like to play this way. Yes, you do like to play a certain way, but sometimes it's the players that you've got that dictate the way that you can play, until such times as you can change it and you can bring in several players. I mean, I think everybody would love the passing game. I mean, I watch some of the English Premier League teams now, and obviously the rules change where you can take the ball in the 18-yard box. Goalkeepers are actually taking by kicks and can pass it back to somebody. Now, I know it would give you heart failure, but if you've got £50 million players and they can do that, yeah, very well. But if you've not, you can't coach them that way. It's very, very, very hard to coach them that way. So sometimes it depends. The biggest thing is it depends on the squad that you've got to get the best out of the players, to get the best results possible. Yeah, we all want to knock the ball about and have 800 passes in a game, but sometimes teams don't allow you to do that.
And that's a very good point as well, because I think we've certainly seen in the Scottish Premier League this year that you do have to adapt to who you're playing, and it's something that Rangers have done very well this year. Is when they've went into Europe, they've adapted very well by changing the formation. It's the same personnel, but they've changed the formation to adapt to these stronger teams. And then when they've came back to playing in Scotland, they've done very well with that.
Yeah, I think when you look at it, probably Rangers, they maybe average 65% of possession in most games in Scotland. When they go to Europe, it's they're maybe not quite as much as that. So they can't play the same way when they're used to having the ball and their fullbacks are used to get. But although what I will say is they've adapted fantastic this year to Europe and the Scottish domestic league. So whatever they're doing there is on their coaches. It's great for them. But as I said, sometimes you've got to change in it. When you're looking at that as well, sometimes it's the pitches that you play on. I mean, you're looking at AstroTurf and you're looking at grass. Can you play the same on AstroTurf as you play on grass? I think when you watch the two games are totally different, and there's a certain way of playing. And I mean, I would say, looking at the AstroTurf, it's a case of, yeah, you probably need to get the ball forward a little bit quicker than have good possession in your own half and passing it sideways. I think sometimes a little bit more direct on the Astro is needed. Try to get in behind people because it's a slower pitch. I think Steven Gerrard spoke about it last year, and maybe the problems that they had previously with the Astro, and he wanted to change his style a little bit, and I think they've done that, and they've got the results to go with that this year. So I think you've got to take that into consideration as well. It's when football pitches aren't as nice as what they are in August when you took up, and it's all the grass is green and everything else, and then all of a sudden it becomes a little bit bobbly and it's not as easy to pass on, and you can give the ball away in dangerous areas. So I think you've got to take all that into account when you're looking at games, and you take each game individually.
Yes, again, it's that adapting to, we'll talk about different styles, but again, different playing surfaces. You certainly found in the last couple of years, like even, I think it was Simunovic, he could hardly play on AstroTurf. He could be in a 4 or 5 game run for Celtic and be playing phenomenal. But then when it came to the AstroTurf game, he was either taken out, dropped, or he wouldn't play as well because of how he, I think it was like something to do with his knee, like how he actually reacted to the pitch. And it's all about adapting with that as well. Because if you do have players that can't play on a certain type of pitch because of injury, then of course that's going to affect your squad as well.
Yeah, definitely. There's no doubt about that. Some people are more suited to playing on the Astro than others. Then it might be because it's long-term injuries that they've had or niggles that they've got, and they want to save them from going on the AstroTurf. So you've got to take that. It's another one for a coach. You've got to take that into consideration when you're looking at your team from Saturday to Saturday. What football pitch am I going to be playing on next week?
Aye. And well, that's the thing, is a plan as well, to make sure that's done properly. Just to talk about coaching just now, have you seen any differences in the way that coaching was when you were a player to now it is like in the current day?
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that players now expect a lot more information, particularly about opponents and individuals you're playing against. And I think what we've got now is with all the analytical stuff and analysis that people do. I mean, all you have to do is look at Sportsy, and you look at the analysis that they're doing just now. So players look at that, and it doesn't matter what club you're at. It could be the junior football, it could be Premiership football, right through the leagues. People definitely need a lot more information now than what they did then, and it's much more accessible now, and it's easy to get. I mean, when we were at Bolton, the first time I went down, obviously we had an analyst at Burnley, but he'd just come in, we're just kind of starting it at the time. But when we went to Bolton, there was 2 or 3 there, and all the information. I mean, each player had on their phone got their individual opponent each night before a game, and it was up to them to look through it and see what they were, and then if they had any problems, they could come and talk to us and stuff like that. What I meant was you didn't have enough time to go through every single player, but if people had any questions to ask you, it was so much easier for them to come to you and ask or talk about it, a certain player, a certain way to play against them. And I mean, that was invaluable at that time. Some players used it, some players didn't really bother.
It's just obviously different in resources and that as well that you'd find, because resources have changed phenomenal. Like even if you look at the past decade for football and what is available to football players and football teams now.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that. I mean, I've had the 2 ends of the spectrum. I've had absolutely nothing. When you've got nothing there, the only thing you've got is the highlights on the television that you can look at the opposition. And now, whereas you've got your Instat, you've got your Pro Zone, everything else that the game's dissected bit by bit. You can have the individual people's touches, their aerial duels, anything like that you can get with the press of a button. So obviously if that's there and people want to use it, yes, good. But you're talking about changes in coaching. Well, there you go. That's one of them, because people want much more information now, and they expect to get much more information, and to cover all your bases. That's what players are looking for.
It's like having that plan A, B, C, and D for these different situations, and making sure everything's like more detailed. And if something does go wrong, or if there is a change in play, then you can switch to that, and you just hope the team switches as well. Obviously, with looking at it and researching
it. Yeah, but even with all your analysis, your equipment, and everything like that, a lot of times it's what you see in the pitch. And you've got to adapt to what you see in the pitch for 90 minutes. You don't go looking at monitors and seeing this and seeing that. I mean, you think about it, you've only got maybe probably a 5-minute talk at half time by the time people come in and they sit down and they get ready for you speaking, and then everything else that goes with it. I mean, you've got 5 minutes to get as much information there as possible out. And you can't overload them also. I mean, they've got to concentrate on their own game. You can't, there is a thing such as overloading people. There's no doubt about that. When I played, I just wanted to concentrate in the game, concentrate on my opponent, and that was me. I was quite happy. But as a coach, you've got another 10 players on the pitch as well. So you're concentrating for a lot of them.
That's the thing. Like as you're saying, you've only got like that short space of time, so it needs to be concise. And even when you're from the sidelines, if you do get a chance to speak to them, it has to be concise. And I think that's probably one of the best things that players are starting to learn now, is know the fine points instead of knowing everything. You don't need to know everything for it. You just need to know the little bits to then learn from that, like the wee building block type things.
Yeah. Well, what I always done was when I played and as a coach, I tell the other players, if I'm playing at right fullback, I look at my right centre back, I look at my right midfield player, I look at my the people on my side of the pitch, and I look at that and I try to build relationships with them. And if it's going well and the relationships are going well, I'm fine. If it's not, I need to think about it and maybe do something about it. So, as a player, you can't think about the other 10 players that's on the pitch. It's impossible to do. There'll be too many things going through your head. But that's what I always found. I found the relationships you built up with the players that play around about your area of the pitch. And I think that's important for players to do that.
Well, that obviously help for like the likes of cover and track and runs, and if you're say it's like if it's your right fullback and your right mid has lost his man, then obviously it's having that relationship to know when's the trigger to cover and the centre back and that as well, and obviously that helps for the team. Just before we finish up, what would you say is the best advice for people like myself, like a young coach coming through and trying to not develop my style, but trying to make it as best I can?
Yeah, well, it's one of the things, everything else we spoke about before, as in you can find a style that you like to play, and I think everybody would love to play, get the ball on the ground, have as many passes as you can, but don't get caught up in that. Have a look at the team, have a look at the players that you've got round about you, and see what best suits your style, what's best suits the team style and the players that you've got available. Also, it's one of them. Remember, it's the players that's playing the game. It's not you. So it's got to be that there's got to be a bit of leadership on that pitch as well. Rome isn't built in a day. It takes. Probably all the best coaches have learned from experiences. Even Steven Gerrard in his young fledgling career as a coach, he probably learned a lot about himself when he took Liverpool under 18s. Now, I know it's a different pressure and everything else, but he probably put himself on the same pressure as taking 18s as he put himself under managing Rangers. There's only so much pressure you can put yourself under, but you learn from experience. You definitely learn, and you hear managers now. It's amazing, and I've done it myself. When you get relieved of your duties and you come back in and you say, "I'm a better manager now than what I was before," because you do learn from things. You go away, you take stock, and then you come back, and the little mistakes, because everybody makes mistakes, but the mistakes that you made before, it's like a player. If you continually make the same mistakes, then it's going to be bad for you. It's the same as a manager. If you continually make the mistakes, whether it's through stubbornness or whatever it may be, it's not going to be good for you. So learn. Yes, some people have got to learn on the job. Other people can go away and learn from it. But don't think you can learn it all in the space of weeks or months. It's not a case of that. It's learning through experiences.
It's about obviously taking, like as you're saying, mistakes. Like, I feel that mistakes are meant to happen so you can learn from them, and that happens with everything in life. It's like in coaching as well. It's very prevalent. But what I want to say is thank you very much for coming on, Sandy. It's been great to speak to you. It's been great to hear your experiences as well, and I'm sure everybody watching this will appreciate what you've told us today as well.
Well, thanks very much, Lewis. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers, Sandy. And we'll everything on the social media, guys. So make sure you check out everything else, and we'll catch up with you soon.